King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. I want kings and queens now. Go ahead. Say it again.
Verse 1. 2 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 1.
Second Chronicles 9, 1. Go ahead.
And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to prove Solomon with hard questions at Jerusalem, with a very great company, and camels that bear spices, and gold in abundance, and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. Told
him.
Nothing hid from Solomon which he told her not. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen...
Oh, wait a minute. Do you know what she asked about? Is there other places in the Bible that tells about what she asked about? How the water get in this pool? Now, he gave her a lecture on hydrology. He said, look, it starts over there in the Mediterranean, and the sun shines in. You know this is all in the Bible? And it goes up and it forms the clouds. And those clouds blow over to Mount Hermon, then the dew, and it comes down, and then the rain, and it comes in these rivers, and it comes down here, and then I've channeled them and brought the outlet, and I've made them, and I made these pools. Now this queen was absolutely flabbergasted with such a lesson on meteorology. He knew where the rain came from. She had never heard a thing like that. She's Queen of Sheba, and she had no and he's telling her, and she is just thrilled with learning what this magnificent king could teach. Go ahead, Dave.
And when the Queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Solomon, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants...
Say that all over again, David.
And the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants.
The what?
The sitting of his servants.
The way the servants sat at the table. Go ahead.
And the attendance of his ministers and their apparel.
The way his servants and ministers were dressed, and the way they attended. I mean to tell you, he would just, and he'd have three guys standing at his side. You know what I'm talking about? He'd go like that, and there would be a whole tray of things. You know what I'm saying? And then listened about those servants. Listen to them. Go ahead, Dave.
His cupbearers also, and their apparel.
Their what?
Apparel.
Their clothes. Do you know how her servants were clothed? They were naked Sabean slaves. She was queen, she was queen. But his guys looked like they were getting ready for the Ritz. I mean, they looked like the doorman at the Waldorf Astoria. I mean, they had not only pants, but stripes down the side. You know what I'm saying? Epaulets on their shoulders. Golden things down here. You know what I'm saying? These guys had it. Their apparel. They were absolutely... Now, I have been in fine restaurants, always when somebody else was paying the bill. And I have been in restaurants where they were dressed like that, and they always wore this little white towel. They would come in with this little white towel, right, like that, you know. The towel was here, and they were holding things like that, but that towel was there. Well, I knew I was really at the Ritz then, you know what I'm saying. I was, yeah, tuxes. It's kind of nice. Would you agree with me? Every once in a while, it's kind of nice to get to one of those places. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
And his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord.
Oh, I wish we could talk about that, his ascent, the 7 steps to the throne. Go ahead.
And there was no more spirit in her.
What?
There was no more spirit in her.
It took the spirit out of the woman. She was there to test him with her questions. She was there to find if he really was what they had said he was. And when she saw, not him, well, finally his ascent, but when she made the discovery by the bearing of his servants, by their apparel, by the way they sat at the table, by the way they ate. Do you understand me? Her servants, when she got finished, she just threw the bone like this, and they would all, in a gnarling way, grab for it. How did Solomon's servants sit? Well, if you study it, you will discover that Solomon's servants sat at a table that was in the dining room where Solomon sat.
Come on.
And his servants reached for the right utensil at the right time. They were trained, kosher, washed, combed, attired. Go ahead, Dave.
And she said to the king, it was a true report, which I heard in my own land of thine acts and of thy wisdom. Albeit I believed not their words, until I came and my eyes had seen it. And behold, that one half of thy greatness, of thy wisdom, was not told to me, for thou exceedest the fame that I heard.
How much? One half. Go ahead.
Happy are thy men, and happy are thy servants.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yep.
She judged the king on the happiness of his servants. Her judgment of whether he was a great and wise and wonderful king was on whether the servants lived in a shack or a fine home. Whether they went to work on the streetcar or whether they had an automobile. Whether their clothes were cleaned and pressed or whether they were shabby and dirty. Whether their hair and their coiffure was just right or whether it was stringy and, you know what I'm talking about? Listen, I would, if it was any way possible, I would rather be judged on the bearing of my servants than on my accomplishments. Did you hear me? It's the bearing of your servants which is your highest compliment. Am I making any sense to anybody?
Yes.
Now, how many would like to be employed by Dave Ebaugh? Yeah, because it's the bearing of the servants. Don't you see? Now, in my opinion, I haven't been able to do it, but I would want to, and I still want to. I want every one of my people to have the kind of a house where, in order to get to the front door, you drive to a driveway that goes in and around and out. Not just one of those in-out.
Right.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want you to have a house on the hill where you've chosen it, not me, where you've chosen it that's the right, you know what I mean? Got the right number of bedrooms and those kind of things. But I want people to drive by your house and say, that's where Dave Ebaugh's servant lives. Because I want people to judge me by what you got. Your bearing, your table, your clothes. Am I making sense on this?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kurt.
1. And when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions. Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bear spices, and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions, and was not anything hid from the king which he told her not. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he went up unto the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her.
My. I don't know how that affects you, but it affects me. This woman had come up to test him, to try him. She came up with a spirit, and her spirit was saying, prove it, prove it. Okay, big boy, put your money where your mouth is. Prove it. And he did.
Shall I continue? And she said to the king, it was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not the words until I came, and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. Thy prosperity exceedeth the fame which I heard. Happy are thy men, happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and that hear thy wisdom. Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighteth in thee, to set thee on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore made he thee king to do judgment and justice. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and of spices very great store, and precious stones. There came no more such abundance of spices as these, which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon.
I'm going to, well, let's stop here a little bit because you're close to where I get in just a minute. To me, that's the highest compliment that can be paid. You understand what I said? Wouldn't it be great to be judged as president by your cabinet?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What if you were admiral of the fleet? How would you want to be judged? By the captains of the ships. What if you're the captain of the ship? How do you want to be judged? By the officers. What if you were an officer on the ship?
By the crew.
You'll want a smiling crew. How many understand that? Now, if you've been in the Navy like I have, you know that most of the crews are not smiling. That's your first clue right there. Something's wrong. Something isn't right. Because your crew ought to be willing to give up their lives for the ship. You know what I'm saying? They ought to be able to be standing next to a man, and when the hatch slams shut, to be able to slam that hatch, whirl it up, and seal yourself in if you have to. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it has to be. But if you got a bunch of frowning guys, how many know the chances are not as good that you're going to get back to port as if your crew is smiling? I think you know what I'm saying now, don't you? And so that's the basic thing. Have you ever been into church and looked over the congregation? What do you see?
That's right.
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Lemons and prunes. Well, I don't want to be judged that way. I want to be judged by smiling, happy students who are showing that what is coming at the table, what's being served, has been a good meal. That's the three things I want to tell you about kings and queens right now. Now I want to get into the other lesson about the King of Kings. And I've got to show you the other side. You mind the other side?
No.
Okay, 1 Kings 10:14, 2 Chronicles 9:13. You've been in the same section. We're going to read the next verse, David. Next verse, Kurt.
10:14.
1 Kings 10:14, 2 Chronicles 9:13.
Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 606 talents of gold.
666.
Oh, David, let me hear it.
2 Chronicles 9, verse 13. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 606 talents of gold.
You see, he goofed it. He didn't keep it. He didn't keep it the way it ought to be. 666 means heavy, oppressive taxes that are spent for a giant industrial military complex. How many know that he started the military complex? Come on. The giant military complex, the shields of Solomon. And what did he do? He put his soldiers and his shields and his stables over in the foreign countries so that he could fight wars on foreign soil to make prosperity at home. I said 666 is spending money to have soldiers and sailors out on other people's soil so that we can have a giant industrial military complex. Number of it? Six. Solomon's stable, Solomon's shield, Solomon's army, Solomon. And what's the name of Solomon's navy? Ships of Tarshish. The ships of Tarshish. And then it goes and describes the ships of Tarshish. And the Tarshish nations are the nations that are going to win the next war. So we studied that from Ezekiel and others, and we discovered that the Tarshish nations are Spain, Japan, United States, and all the nations that trade with Israel in ships. Now, Spain especially, because there's a city in Spain called Tarshish. Oh, India. And from those, it tells you he got ivory, apes, and peacocks. The ships of Tarshish brought those things back. Then there's a very interesting thing about Solomon. Let me show you the other side. I'll play with this coin for a minute, both sides of the coin. Solomon was a smart guy because he had 12 captains, and his 12 captains were each in charge of a month. And during that, each one of them had 11 months to go out all over the world to gather the finest delicacies, the greatest dishes, and the most wonderful things that the table could bear. Then they had 1 month to prepare those, and that was the month that they stood before the king, and then the king's table was then outfitted by the captains. Now, how many know that those captains always preferred each other, and how many know the captains were highly jealous of each other and did everything according to outdo the other?
Right.
And so that his table was the finest table in the world. You know what I'm saying? Smart guy. So the industrial military complex is something we have to deal with. And he goofed. How many know the Bible says he started out right and he goofed? What made him goof? Well, his wives goofed. You agree with me, he goofed?
Yes.
He didn't always do right, and he didn't always stay the wise man. But during these times, I want to talk about the wise part. Now I'll talk about the foolish part. What's the foolish part? The foolish part is thinking that you can bring peace, security, and safety to any government system. The government cannot provide peace, security, and safety for any person. The government can only provide war. If you don't understand that, let me define the word government. The purpose of the government is to govern, and that means make you do things you don't want to do. Whether you caught that or not. That's the purpose of government. And the government then makes us do things. Now, did the government ever give you a rule of money management that helped you? When they sold you war bonds during World War II, they were $18.75, right? All right, so you gave me $18.75, and I said, man, in 10 years I'm going to get $25. So the $25 would not buy as many loaves of bread as the $18.75. Come on.
Right.
So and it's been that way since the 40s, when I started watching it. That's the way it's been. When they say this is the best time to save, then you should. When they are advising people to spend, then you ought to be. Okay. It's just that simple. I remember an article, the Treasurer of the United States got on the news, and he said, yes, we're going into our sandwich coins and the dime, but the dime will always be worth a dime, so don't hoard up your silver dimes.
Don't hoard them up.
So what was that?
Trying to hold up. Save them.
I should have known right away, the first thing to do. I didn't do it, but I should have. When he said, you know, it'll never be worth anymore, you know, they'll trade this with you. Then I should have immediately took the lesson. And when they said, don't save up your silver certificates, 1940, no, 1952. You know, you remember the dollar? There is, this certifies there is on deposit trade in the United States, $1 in silver. Remember that?
Yes.
So they told us not to save them. And then do you remember when they said we're going off the silver, that there were some people smart enough that went down to the treasury and actually traded for these plastic bags of silver? Do you remember? Does anybody remember that I'm telling the truth? Or one or two? Tell it real loud, Mary, did I right?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, because those were the smart ones. We should have realized that whatever they tell us, do the opposite.
Right, yeah.
Because their purpose is to govern us. And that means to get the most out of us in money or physical work, for something, you know, sailors or whatever it is. And so it's just that simple. Now, despisers of government. How many know that the Bible warns against being despisers of government? Now, doesn't it say that? So I looked that up to study it because I thought that maybe I was quite a sinner. And I discovered that within the context, the government is government of the church. It's not the government in Washington. Yeah. If you study it in the context, it has to do with government of the church. That's where we have to get into the idea you either believe. Now, I happen to believe that God even sets up kings and puts down kings. Study that, we find out that really, when you get right down to it, it doesn't matter which party gets in, because the government is controlled by 12 people, and those people are not members of the government. These are called the Operating Open Market Committee of the Federal Reserve Board. And if you don't believe that, just turn to Encyclopedia Britannica, and it'll tell you that they control, and they make the final decision about everything. And so we think that we're making decisions when we, you know, when we get in a president or something like that, but it's the Open Market Committee and the 12 people. If you want to know what banks they control, then look on your dollar bill. This is the Bank of Denver, the Bank of Philadelphia, the Bank of San Francisco. Remember all those things on your dollar? There's 12 of them. And studying about God, you've got to, there's no other way. You've got to do this. I mean this. You must do this. You're going to have to deal with the fact that El Elyon is the Most High God, and it's the name of God, El Elyon. Yahweh is the God of Israel. It's the name of the God of Israel. Elohim is the name of the Creator. In the book of Genesis 1:1, and Elohim did this and Elohim did that. El Shaddai is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Tells you in Exodus 6:2-4. Eloah is the thing created. El Elyon, Elohim, Eloah, in that order. Now, most of us have had to deal with the question, if God is the God of love, why do people die? Come on.
Yeah, you're right.
Come on. If God's the God of love, why are we compressed? Why are we crushed? Your testimony. Why? You know what happened? What's wrong? There have to be answers for this. And here are some of the answers. El Elyon is the Most High God. El Elyon is the Father of Jesus Christ. El Elyon, someone turn to Luke 1:32. I'm going to go real fast with this review. Some of this is brand new for some people and it's a review for others. But how many have noticed that even a review is good?
Right.
All right. El Elyon. How many agree? Even though you've heard this before, how many will have already noticed there are new people here who must hear this? Must hear this. Okay. So that settles that. 1:32. Luke.
He shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Highest. And
Helen, is your highest? Look at highest there. The word highest.
it's capital H.
Capital Y?
H.
Capital H. Why do you capitalize a word?
Because that's
Proper name.
Personal.
proper.
It's a proper name. Highest. Son of the highest, most high. Superlative. He's the son of El Elyon. Take your pencil, mark a little line under highest, and over in the side write El Elyon. This, in the margin, this is the Most High God. Helen, while you're there, if you don't mind, go to verse 35 now. You're right there close, so do the next thing.
And the angel answered and said unto her, The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the Highest shall overshadow thee.
And-
Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God.
Now, there was a big argument. Why was there an argument? He said, my father, your father. Remember that? My father, your father. How many times? Remember that? Come on.
Yeah.
Over and over again. His father was named El Elyon. Their father was named Yahweh. The father of the Jewish religion is Yahweh. And what did he do? He gave them 613 Tosava commands. Yahweh was the God of Israel. 613 Tosava commands. El Elyon always grants mercy, love, and forgiveness. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
El Elyon. Every time you find the word El Elyon, and this word El Elyon is translated God. The word Yahweh is translated God. The word Elohim is translated God. El Shaddai is translated God. Eloah is translated God. All 5 words are translated God. It's no wonder we're all messed up.
Right.
Because when we read our Bible, God's God. We don't even know it's a different word. Not alone have we studied to find the different. Did you hear the next word? Natures of the names of God. For these various names have different natures. And the El Elyon is the Most High God. Yahweh's nature is masculine. The very word Yahweh is a masculine word. How many know that they have gender? Hebrew words have gender. Nod your head. Shake your hand. All right. Yahweh is a masculine word. El Shaddai is a feminine word. Yahweh is the God of Israel. Yahweh gives law. He's masculine, forceful, pushing, projecting. He's bossy. He's a man. And all the ladies said, that's a good description of a masculine God. Let me talk about El Shaddai. El Shaddai, the word Shad, is a word meaning mountain. And the word is breast. It means this is the breasted one. Or El Shaddai is the breasted God, the God of large breasts or multi-breast. That makes you shock you about multi-breast, but it's multi or large breasted. And so this is, and the word that ends in the D-A-I is a feminine word. It's a masculine feminine. Now that's an interesting thing right there, isn't it? Huh? If I said that El Shaddai is a female, not very many people like it. But in your new book, the purple, I mean that turquoise book there, I even refer to God as she.
Boy, that's good.
But I wasn't referring to Yahweh when I was doing it. What was I referring to? El Shaddai, because the very word, the gender of the word, the etymology of the word, and the meaning of the word is a female. And everything that El Shaddai did was female. And you know how we know it? Because El Shaddai was a provider. This is a mothering provider with breasts. Now, Yahweh is the masculine God. Yahweh is the God of force, the God of power, the God of 613 laws. Now, in these laws, and how many would agree that, generally speaking, the mother gives commands and the father gives law? It makes sense? Try it again. You see, Abraham, how many know that it says that El Shaddai was the God of Abraham?
That's right.
Right? El Shaddai is the God of Abraham. So, it tells you in Hebrews, it says that it tells you in Hebrews that it was when Abraham kept the commandments of God, it was counted unto him for righteousness. You remember that? All right, it didn't say he kept the laws, it kept the commandments. So now we're going to have to see the difference between commandments and laws. The females give commandments and the males give laws. Is that too fast for you?
No.
Let's do it again now until we get it, until everybody's together. The female El Shaddai gave commandments, the masculine Yahweh gave laws. He gave 613 laws. She gave commandments. What's the difference? Well, I hope I can get this point across, even though I'm kind of tied with this microphone, but here it goes. I want you to watch the little boy as he comes in the house. Now, he's about, well, I'll give him 7 or 8 years old. Got the picture? So he opens the screen door and he walks in the house. As he walks in the house, mother yells at him and says, "Stop, son. What's the matter, Mom?" She said, "I've told you time and time again, wipe your feet." "Oh, I'm sorry." So he goes back out. He wipes his feet. He comes back in the house and he goes back and does his thing. Next day, the kid comes in, he opens the door like this, walks into the house, and mother says, "Son, what's the matter with you? I have told you to wipe your feet." "Sorry, mother. Oh, I love you." So he goes on. Like this. Comes in the house, goes about and does his business. Next day, he comes through like this. He opens the door. He walks through the door, and she says, "Stop, son. Don't you know what I want?" He said, "No, mother, I don't know what you want." "I want you. You're to wipe your feet." "Sorry, sir." And he's a fun, so he wipes his feet and goes to the door. Now this was a Saturday morning when they came in this time. He opened the door like this. He wiped his feet, but this time Dad was sitting over there in the den for him. "Stop. Your mother has commanded you to wipe your feet every day of your life." He said, "But I always did it. I'm a good boy, man. She told me to do it, and I did it." He said, "Son, from this day forward, This is the law. Don't you ever open that door and walk through the portal without first wiping your feet, because this is the law of the Father. How many know what I'm saying? So the law of the Father comes into play. The mother can tell a kid until she's blue in the face. It's like talking to a brick wall. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And the reason is mothers give commands. And I'll show you every time throughout the Bible that El Shaddai gave commands. And he kept the command because Abraham always went back and wiped his feet. I don't know if we got that or not. She told him every step and everything he had to do. Like mothers do little kids. But when he's growing up, the father comes into play and he says, it's time to quit that. From now on, I'm setting the law down, and the law is this. Every time you'll remember this, because your father is giving you a law, not a command. How many understood what I said? So I was in the Navy, and what's the order? You obey the last command first, right?
Right.
You obey the last command first because irrespective of logic. I don't know if we caught that or not. White hats have learned that. Irrespective of logic, it's always obeying the last command first. And the wise ones then advise the officer that then received the command that was in opposition to the command. You know what I'm saying? But females, am I saying anything to everybody here today? Am I describing what happens in your house? Uh-huh. And the problems that we've had with the little kids? Because the females give commands and the males give laws. And so the male law becomes a part of our life eventually. Fascinating that the Bible even uses the words correctly. As we find that Yahweh gave the law and El Shaddai gave the commands. Then there's another interesting thing as we study this thing, and I don't know how far to go, but let's talk about it for just a minute. And Elohim said, let us create man in our own image. In the image of God created, that was Elohim. See the word Elohim? That's neither masculine nor feminine. That's called androgynous. That's an androgynous word. How many know what androgynous means? What's androgynous? You got it. This worm is androgynous. What do we need? It can reproduce without another worm. Within its own fishing worm, you know what I'm talking about. It has the cells of the male and the female in this androgynous thing. The word Elohim is androgynous. So Elohim said, let us create man in our own image, in the image of God. In the image of Elohim created him. Now, the next question is, was Adam a man or a woman?
Yes.
Because he was created in the image of an androgynous creature. Isn't that interesting? Did you hear me? Did I go too fast for you?
Nope.
He was created an androgynous creature because he was in the image of the male and the female. Now, if you held that just a minute, hold that in the left hand, go to the right hand, look at this. Yahweh is masculine, El Shaddai is feminine. Nothing is created until the masculine and the feminine forces come together in concert or symphony. Nod your head like you understand what I'm talking about. I may have to explain it in a minute, so nod your head. So I can go on. If you have to have a male and a female, or you get no creation.
Right.
Right? So you've got to have an El Yahweh, you've got to have an El Shaddai. That means that the last name of Yahweh and the last name of El Shaddai is Elohim. We caught that or not? Got it? When they are in concert, they are the creator. When they're operating separately, you expect masculine laws and feminine commands. But when they're in concert, you expect creation. Amazing? Then the thing created is the Eloah. Eloah is created. The Eloah is the life-giving force. It's the Spirit. It's the Messiah. It's the Christ. It comes from God, goes to the earth. These are Old Testament words, but they are God. Did you hear me? God's God. Yes, He's God. There's only one God. Yes, there's only one God. Hear, O Israel. Our Lord our God is one Lord. Now, says Lord, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and mind. Remember all this? Now, there's only one God, but let me tell you something. He has different names, natures, according to our need, not his. Did you catch that? Yes, he did. He got different names, and he changes his name, nature. Give it to me in Exodus chapter 6, verse 2. Exodus 6, 2. Can I hear it? King James.
And God spake unto Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord,
Go ahead, Peggy.
and I appear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty. But by my name Jehovah was I not known to them.
First, we'll ask Peggy, did God change his name? I am the Lord. I appeared by one name, now I got a new name. Peggy, did God change his name? Yes.
Yes. God-
Say it, yes.
The first God was Jehovah.
Now, everybody tell Peggy, God changed his name. Tell her that, will you please? God changed his name. He changed his name. Yes, he did. God changed his name. That's what I want you to see. We'll get into some more of that in just a minute. Now, Peggy is calling her attention to the first Lord. You see that I am the Lord. See that word Lord? Put it, underline it, and over to the right, or over to the left, wherever your margin is. Write Yahweh. I am Yahweh. However, before you do that, excuse me, and God said, see that word God? And God says, underline God and write Elohim. And Elohim said, I'm Yahweh. Got it? Go ahead, Peggy, and pick me up from there.
And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty.
Now, what's that God's name? Now listen. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew God as what? El Shaddai. But to Moses, I'm appearing to you as, okay, the Lord. Go ahead, Peggy.
But by the name Jehovah was I not known to them.
That's a very interesting thing, because the word Jehovah is the exact same Hebrew word as Lord in the verse above. Did you hear what I said? The exact same word of Lord in verse, what was it, 2? Is Jehovah in 3. Now that tells you something right away. It tells you that the translators were not interested in helping you to understand this. Also, the word Jehovah takes the consonants from Yahweh and the vowels from
Adonai.
That's right, it was Adonai, to make Jehovah. It's not even in the Hebrew. The word Jehovah is not a word in the Hebrew at all. And with all apologies to the Jehovah's Witnesses, there ain't no such word. It's a made-up word that never appeared before. Never appeared before. You can check me out, you know. You've heard me teach this, haven't you? You've heard some of this, right? And how many years have I been teaching this? What, 20, 30 years now. And not a preacher has ever, how many know preachers would like to show where I'm wrong? They haven't. Why? Because it's right. Jehovah is a made-up word, and it should be Yahweh. So underline Jehovah, and over on the side write Yahweh. Now we find the word. If your margin is the way my margin is, first thing is Elohim, and then Yahweh, and then what's the next one? El Shaddai, and then Yahweh again. Got it? 4 different English words for God, 3 different Hebrew words for God in 2 verses, and it's no wonder we're arguing about what God's like. Come on, tell the truth. How many would agree that nobody here agrees with anybody else what God's like? Come on. Come on. To some, God is way up on a, 40,000 miles away. To other, He's a loving Father. Come on. And and how many of you would agree with me that the way that God's nature, as far as you're concerned, has a lot to do with the way you're feeling? You know what I'm saying? What's happening at the moment is the nature you pick. Now these name natures are in the Bible, but they have been confused and confounded. That's the correct word. Technically, that's a correct word. It's a good word, confounded. They're confounded by the translators. The translators have not helped us to understand what and who God is. And that's a sad, sad thing. Now, the name nature of the God who created my Savior is El Elyon, the Most High God. The name nature of Judaism is Yahweh. Angels in the sky over Baltimore, October 1982, appeared to me and told me that the God of Judaism, the God of Roman Catholicism, and the God of Protestantism is Yahweh. They said the God of the new religion is El Elyon. They used the word religion. I first taught this and exposed this information to the pastors, a pastor's meeting in Pittsburgh. There the pastors warned me, Brother Ebaugh, never say new religion. Say new move. Maybe a new anything, but not a new religion. This gave me the opportunity to make a choice between the advice of the pastors and what the angels said.
Amen. Amen to that.
And what choice would I have to make? What the angels said. For the angels said a new religion is developing in the land. They said this religion will be as different from Christianity as Christianity was from Judaism. That ought to go. You ought to go like, next time I'm going to do that again. When I say that again, go like this. Are you ready? And the angel. No, that's too much. You got the point? Shocking. Shocking. No religion will be as different from Christianity as Christianity is from Judaism. Here's why. Christianity is a mixture of law and grace. The new religion will be pure grace. The new religion, well, El Elyon is the name nature of God. The name nature of God of the present religions is a mixture of Yahweh and just a little bit of grace of El Elyon, to whatever Jesus could bring into the church. Am I making any sense, anybody?
Oh, yes.
So that's what they told me. They told me to go ahead and write the book. Then they said, when you get the book written, I said, what I do next? And they said, well, I didn't say what I do next. They just told me. Didn't seem to care what I thought. And they said, you're to make billboards. I said, billboards? That makes sense. I'm an electronic engineer. I've designed radio stations. I know all about radio and television. Why billboards? He said, so that he that writeth may read while he's writing in a hurry. That's in Ebaugh chapter 2. Write it on a board and make it plain so that he that writeth may read it. You remember that, Ebaugh chapter 2? Looks like I got a few that don't know what I'm talking about. Ebaugh chapter 2, he says there's a billboard, and put it on a billboard. That's what the angel said. Then I said, what kind? And they said, make El Elyon as big as it will fit on the billboard. It'll be gold letters on a blue background. Then they said there's a credit line right under it. On the credit line, you're to write the name of the local person who has sponsored the billboard with their phone number. Those who want information about El Elyon will call that local number. Then you will deliver them one of these books on the names of God. That's what they said. Then they said that this is to be a coordinated effort so that the billboards will appear all over the United States at the same time, because every person who's in it will have that packet and learn how to do it and talk to their outdoor advertising, you know what I mean, people put the billboards up. And they will have already the contracts, and you will probably invest anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for this billboard, and it'll have your own name and phone number on it. Won't have my name there at all on the billboard, but it will have, our books. You'll give them, the person, it'll be up to you whether you sell them or give them a book, but at least you will have their names and their phone numbers and a few things about them, from which God said he will, from which the angel said that this will change the consciousness of a nation. That's what they said. They said this will change the consciousness of a nation. Now what will that do? You see, your $1,000 for your billboard, wherever you live, Delta, or wherever it is, you see, what that does is it multiplies by the $1,000 that was put in yours. And that's multiplied by $1,000 and strikes down and, right down the road. So what does that do? It makes you a part, you got a little part of a tremendously large national advertising campaign. And so whenever somebody sees it in this drive, in this part of the road, or Alabama, or wherever they're going to see it in another state, in another city. And it goes, how in the world can this, and it hit all at once. You know what I'm saying? Throughout the whole nation, it hit all at once. Into a new religion. The El Elyon message will turn into a new religion. And this religion will be as different. And then I wanted to know about what responsibility do we have, and the only answer that I could get is you do what I tell you.
That's good.
Friends will be responsive to the ways of God in Jesus' name. Amen. It's been good to be with you, and we look forward to another time.